This happened last month. I was at the notary's office to sign divorce papers. I've done a lot of freelance jobs before, but I never felt so uneasy when I left. The sun was setting, and I thought the streets would feel lively. They usually did. I stepped out, took a deep breath, and started walking home. But I felt it. I think someone was following me. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks, but I quickened my pace trying to shake off this feeling. I've never stopped thinking about it. As I walked down the street, I tried to ignore it. I looked back once, twice, but I didn't see anyone. Still, I felt eyes on me. It was a little chilly. I felt cold, even though I was bundled up in my jacket. The shops were closing, and the lights started to flicker off, casting long shadows in the alleyways. In the weeks that followed, I kept noticing that figure. I saw him again 2 days later. He stood near a cafe, just out of sight. My heart raced. I thought it might be my imagination, but I saw the same clothes, a faded hoodie and jeans. Each time he was too far to see his face. It was unsettling. I didn't want to say anything, but there was an unease creeping into my life. Things started to go missing in my apartment. My keys, my favorite mug. I'd leave for a coffee and come back to find my laptop moved. I felt paranoia creeping in like a sickness. I told myself I was just losing it after the divorce. Maybe I was just anxious. But I heard whispers outside my window at night. Muffled voices seemed to scrape against my sanity. I didn't want to check, I didn't. One evening I was working late, trying to distract myself. I tuned into the city sounds outside, but then I heard it again. A soft conversation. "He doesn't know," one voice said. I froze. I felt the rush of cold sweat on my skin. Who were they talking about? I couldn't ignore it. I peeked through the window blinds. I didn't see anything but the empty street, shadows dancing where the streetlights flickered out. Now I was on edge. I wanted to confront the lurking figure, but what if it made things worse? What if I was just imagining things? I told myself it wasn't real, but the unease settled deeper each day. The shadows seemed to lengthen at night, reminding me that I was alone. Then one night, as I sat on my couch, my phone buzzed. It was a message from my old friend Sam. It read, "I saw you. Why don't you turn around?" I felt the warmth drain from my body. I turned around slowly. The darkness was there, but I didn't see anyone. Just shadows. Then I felt something. A presence. It was right behind me. I could hear faint breathing and my heart sank. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to scream, run, hide. Instead, I was frozen in place. The feeling of terror wrapped around me, squeezing harder as seconds slipped away. I kept telling myself to be brave, but what if this was the moment I faced my fears? Would I find nothing, or something worse? Either way, I was still trapped in my own mind, and the shadows felt like they were closing in on me. I don't remember how long I stood there, frozen on my couch, with dread hammering at my chest. The breathing behind me was slow, deliberate. I could almost feel its weight pressing down on me. I had to move. I made myself take a deep breath and turned around. There was nothing there. Just an empty room, filled with shadows and silence. My heart raced as I scanned every corner. Was I going crazy? I rubbed my temples, trying to shake the fear. That's when I heard it again, faint but clear, echoing in my mind. "He doesn't know." The message from Sam replayed in my head. Why would he say that? I grabbed my phone and typed a quick response. "What do you mean? Who doesn't know?" I hit send and waited, fingers trembling. But the seconds stretched into minutes with no reply. Panic clawed at me. I paced the room, my mind racing. Was Sam involved in this somehow? Or was I just too paranoid to think clearly? I needed to see if my locks were secure. As I reached the door to check, a loud bang made me jump. It came from the window, the sound of something hitting glass. I turned quickly, bracing myself. My heart raced again, and I took a cautious step forward. I pulled the curtains aside, and my breath caught in my throat. There it was, a shadowy figure standing in the alley outside my building. I couldn't see his face, but the faded hoodie loomed familiar. It was like he'd been waiting. I slammed the curtain back, heart racing, and backed away from the window. Was he watching me? Did he know I could see him? I felt sick. I gathered my thoughts and decided I had to confront this. I couldn't let fear take over. I grabbed my phone again, this time calling Sam. The line rang and I desperately urged him to pick up. But it only rang, and rang, until it went to voicemail. I had to do something. I had to be brave. I instructed myself to breathe, to think. I rummaged through my drawer and found an old baseball bat I kept for emergencies. My hands were shaking. I couldn't hide it. Holding it closer gave me a fragile sense of security. I moved silently, edging to the door. I could still see the figure lurking out there when I peeked. He hadn't moved. I snuck back to the window again, my heart pounding in my throat. That's when I noticed something else. On the ground by a trash bin was my favorite mug. How did it get there? I was sure I left it in the kitchen. As I stepped back, contemplating this strange revelation, I heard a noise. The sound of footsteps crunching on the gravel outside. He was coming closer. I gripped the bat tighter, filling my lungs with air. This ends now, I whispered to myself, barely believing my own courage. Then everything went dark. The power went out, plunging me into a heavy silence. I was now alone with my thoughts and the ticking clock. Panic rose again, and I strained to hear movements. I couldn't tell how far away he was. Had he come inside? I needed to know. I took a slow step toward the door, ready to confront whatever waited for me beyond. I stood in the darkness, feeling the weight of the night bearing down on me. Each tick of the clock felt like a countdown to some unknown horror. Had the figure outside made his way inside while the power was lost? My heart raced as I peered through the keyhole, hoping to see something, anything, that might hint at what was happening. Silence suffocated me. I thought about reaching for my phone to use the flashlight, but that would only give away my position. And what if that was exactly what he was waiting for? Then, like a whisper through the stillness, I heard it. The sound of footsteps on hardwood. My breath caught in my throat, and I froze. The footsteps were slow, deliberate, dragging slightly as if the person didn't care about making noise. I held my bat tight, ready to swing if he dared to appear. But what if it wasn't just him? I remembered Sam's cryptic message. He doesn't know. Who was this he, and what did they not know? My mind raced again. Were there more people involved in whatever this was? My grip on the bat tightened as a new wave of fear washed over me. That's when I noticed something. A faint light glimmering under the door. Someone was using a flashlight, the beam flickering slightly. It was coming closer. My heart thudded louder in my chest. I squeezed my eyes shut for a second, wishing to block it all out. The light stopped just outside my door. I could hear soft breathing, an almost casual rhythm, like he was just waiting for something. I debated my next move. Should I stay silent, wait and see? Or should I yell, demand the intruder leave? Was it wise to reveal my position? Suddenly the handle jiggled. My heart leaped into my throat as the figure outside pushed down. Panic flooded my system, and I had to act fast. I swung the door open hard, crashing it against the wall. There stood a man, face obscured in shadows, flashlight raised and aimed directly at me. I swung the bat instinctively, catching him squarely on the side. He stumbled back, the flashlight clattering to the floor, illuminating his face for just a moment. I didn't recognize him. How had he even gotten here? I could see the shock in his eyes as he breathed heavily, trying to regain his footing. "Who are you?" I demanded, heart racing wildly. He didn't respond, just raised his hands as if trying to calm me down. But I wasn't in the mood to negotiate. Before I could react further, I saw something flash on his wrist. A watch. My favorite watch. It was the one Sam had given me last year. I blinked, trying to make sense of the scene as anger mixed with confusion. "What's going on?" I shouted. But then I heard a different noise, coming from the back of the apartment. My heart sank. Were there others? I had to find out. I gripped the bat tighter and stepped further into the dark, ready to face whoever else was in my home. I moved cautiously into the dark hall, the silence wrapping around me like a thick fog. Every creak of the floor felt amplified, sending shivers down my spine. The man still stood at the door, hands raised, uncertainty etched across his features. "Stay back," I warned. I didn't want to take my eyes off him, but I also needed to figure out what was going on. I took a few steps toward the noise, which had turned into a shuffling sound, like something dragging across the floor. "Please," he said, his voice shaky. "I'm not here to hurt you." "Then explain yourself." My voice trembled, betraying the fear I tried to suppress. Instead of answering, he looked past me toward the sound. Just then, a low moan echoed from the living room. I gripped the bat tighter, acutely aware of the vulnerability that each step I took revealed. I was convinced I wouldn't be able to handle whatever waiting for me in there. "Wait!" the man called, taking a step forward. I swung the bat, just narrowly missing him as he ducked back. "You don't understand. It's not what you think." "Then tell me," I shouted again, desperation creeping into my tone. But nothing else came from him. He just stared, caught between fear and the urge to explain. Determined, I pushed ahead down the hallway and peeked into the living room. My breath hitched at what I saw. In the flickering light of a broken lamp, a figure lay sprawled on the floor, barely visible beneath the couch. I held my breath for a moment, unsure of what I was witnessing. Was this person unconscious? My instinct screamed at me to stay back, but curiosity pulled me closer. I approached, bat raised and ready. The figure was covered in a dark hooded sweatshirt, face obscured. I took a shaky breath. "Who are you?" I asked, voice hoarse. No response. I knelt down, about to shake them awake, when I noticed a glint of silver peeking out from under the hood. "Something sharp?" I leaned closer, heart racing. That's when everything shifted. "Don't!" the man shouted from behind me. My instincts kicked in and I whipped around, swinging the bat. The man dodged quickly, his eyes wide with fear. "You can't! They'll see you!" "See me?" My mind spiraled. Who the hell are they? Panic fueled my voice. I backed up, feeling the chill of the wall against my back. There were more people? In my house? My heart pounded as I processed the chilling implication. I could feel the ground shifting beneath me, and I was powerless to stop it. "Please, just listen to me," he begged, stepping forward again. "You have to trust me." Before I could respond, the front door crashed open, slamming against the wall with a force that rattled the room. I turned in shock to see two shadowy figures silhouetted in the doorway, eyes glinting sinister in the dim light. "Get down!" one shouted. The moment felt suspended in time, and I had no idea what to do next. I barely had time to process their warning before instinct kicked in. I dropped to the ground, curling into a ball behind the couch. The hard floor pressed into my back, but I didn't mind. I could barely hear my own breathing over the pounding of my heart. The man, still lurking at the hall's entrance, lunged toward me but paused, hesitating. I shot him a glance, a frantic plea in my eyes, but he seemed more concerned with the newcomers. The shadowy figures stepped into the room, their silhouettes sharp against the dim light. They moved with an unsettling confidence, scanning the area like wolves on a hunt. I bit my lip, the taste of fear mingling with the coppery tang of adrenaline. "Search the place!" one of them barked. Their voice was cold, devoid of anything but authority. "We know she's here." She? My mind raced. Who were they looking for? Were they here for me? I could hear them shuffling around, knocking over furniture in their search. My instinct screamed at me to run, but I couldn't risk drawing their attention. I briefly glanced at the man. He was frozen, just as scared as I was. "Let them find her," he whispered urgently to me, though I could hardly make sense of his words. "They'll only make it worse if they do." Worse? What could be worse than their presence here? I held my breath, waiting for them to move on. The noise of overturned chairs and footsteps echoed through the house. It felt like an eternity. "Check the bedrooms," one figure ordered. "I want this done." Fear surged through me. They were closing in. I glanced towards the hallway, a potential escape route, but all I could think about was the figure still under the couch. I didn't know what was under that hood, or if they were even alive. Suddenly a loud crash came from the adjacent room. A dresser toppled over. I flinched, heart racing. The intruders zeroed in on the noise and began to head toward it. My chance of getting out was slipping away. As they moved away, the man whispered, "Go, now!" I hesitated, torn between the urge to flee and the instinct to help. But the sound of heavy boots grew louder, and panic took over. Without thinking, I bolted for the hallway, adrenaline coursing through me. I glanced back just once. My heart sank as I saw the man desperately pointing me toward the back door. "Hurry!" he shouted. And that's when I realized I didn't know what was waiting for me out there. I kicked off my hesitation and sprinted down the hallway. I heard shouting, a command from one of the shadowy figures. The urgency pushed me onward, fueled by fear. My hand trembled as I reached for the doorknob, praying it wasn't locked. That's when I felt a cold breeze brush past me, both terrifying and familiar. Someone was outside, waiting. I turned the doorknob, heart pounding in my ears, but it didn't budge. Panic ignited in my chest. The shouting grew louder, echoing through the hall, each word sharper than glass. I was running out of time. Then came the sound of footsteps approaching from behind me. A chill rolled down my spine. I glanced back toward the living room. The man was crouched low, urgency etched across his face, still hidden from view. My instincts battered against my reason, begging me to stay, to find safety in the known rather than plunge into the unknown outside. But the tension in the air thickened, almost suffocating. The door suddenly felt like a barrier between life and something far worse. With trembling fingers, I twisted the knob again. I pushed against the door with all my strength, praying this time it would yield. It swung open, revealing the cool night air, every breath filled with new possibilities and dangers. I stepped outside, the world sprawling before me, dark but alive with unseen threats. I didn't spare a second. I dashed into the yard, heart racing. With each step, the grass felt like a trap, silent and damp. I risked a glance back. The shadowy figures had returned to the living room, their voices now sharp, demanding. "She's gone! Find her!" The realization hit me like a punch. They weren't just looking for someone. They were hunting. I needed to put distance between us. The darkness wrapped around me like a shroud, concealing my movements. I glanced toward the fence lining the yard. It was a flimsy construct, but might serve as my sanctuary if I could just get over it. But then I heard a different noise, a faint rustle to my right. My heart froze in my chest. I turned slowly, facing the direction of the sound, my breath held tight. In the shadows, I spotted a figure. They stepped out, silhouetted against the distant glow of a street lamp. "Who are you?" I whispered, fear tightening my throat. The figure raised a hand, but it wasn't a gesture meant for greeting. It was a signal, a warning. Just then, my adrenaline flared again. A shout rang out from the house, a voice I recognized. It was the intruder, the one commanding the others. "She's still out there! Move!" My instincts kicked in, and without thinking, I darted toward the dim alley beside the house. I could hear footsteps crunching on the gravel behind me. Whoever this new figure was, whether friend or foe, was now forgotten. The only thing that mattered was escaping. I ran into the alley, barely aware of where I was going. My heart raced faster than my feet. Just as I rounded a corner, I glanced back to see the threat closing in. Then, out of the gloom, I felt someone grab my arm. I gasped, ready to scream. "Shh," the figure said softly, pulling me further into the shadows. "They're coming." That's when I realized. I wasn't alone in this fight, but that only raised more questions. Who were they? And why did they try to help me? The figure held my arm firmly, but I could see the uncertainty in their eyes. "We have to move," they said urgently, pulling me deeper into the darkness of the alley. I wanted to protest, to demand answers, but the sound of shuffling footsteps echoed from behind us, growing closer by the second. I stumbled in the dusty ground as they led me toward a narrow gap between two buildings. We needed to stay hidden. The night had become a living creature, breathing down our necks as if it sensed my fear. I squeezed my eyes shut for a moment, wishing I could wake up from this nightmare. "Who are you?" I whispered, desperately trying to catch my breath. I could feel my heart pounding in my throat, drowning out everything else. "Not the time for that," they said, glancing over their shoulder. "If you want to live, follow me." There was an edge to their voice, something so urgent that it pushed me to trust them. I nodded, and we darted through the alley, navigating around trash cans and dodging the wasteful remnants of a night forgotten. Wind howled, carrying the distant sounds of my pursuers as they shouted for me. Every call felt like icy fingers creeping up my spine. We turned another corner, and they suddenly stopped, pressing me against the wall. The figure peeked around the edge, tension radiating off them like heat. "They're close," they hissed. "We have to be quiet." I barely breathed, trying to steady myself, but my pulse thudded loudly in my ears. I strained to hear anything. Footsteps, voices, anything that could tell me how far behind they were. And that's when I felt it. A presence, lurking just beyond the alley's end. "I need to know your name," I urged, my voice barely a whisper now, laced with fear and a desperate need for connection. "Just call me Aaron," the figure replied, still scanning the street. "And you should keep your head down." "Aaron," I repeated as if it might solidify our alliance. But before I could ask more, a loud crash echoed from the house. It sounded like it was being ransacked, furniture upended, chaos spilling out into the night. "They can't hold off much longer," Aaron muttered. "We have to get out of here." Before I could respond, he grabbed my hand again, and we slipped around another corner. The sound of shouting grew more frantic, shadows moving like ghosts in the moonlight. I was terrified of what lay behind us, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't safe anywhere. Suddenly, Aaron stopped short. "Wait," he said, and I nearly bumped into him. He was staring at the ground in front of us. "Look." I followed his gaze and felt my breath hitch. There, half obscured by a pile of debris, lay a small metallic object. A badge, glinting under the streetlight. My heart sank. "Is that—" I began, but Aaron interrupted me. "Yes, it's a badge from the security agency, the ones who watch over this area." His eyes darkened. "This shouldn't be here. They're involved." Everything shifted in that moment. My heart raced not just from fear but a new kind of dread. Who were they? Why were they following me? Then from the shadows, a low voice said, "I know you're there." A cold wave washed over me. It was the shout I feared most. I wasn't just running from danger. I was running from something much worse. Aaron's grip tightened on my hand, and I could feel the pull of fate drawing us deeper into the night. I stiffened at the voice, the way it cut through the night like glass. Panic surged in me. I pulled back instinctively, but Aaron held me steady. "We need to move now," I heard him whisper, urgency coating his every word. Then he was pulling me again, deeper into the shadows. My mind raced, trying to make sense of the chaos around us. The city felt foreign, each corner a potential trap. We dashed to another alley, more narrow and cloaked in darkness. My eyes strained to adjust, but all I could see were the outlines of buildings and the fog of uncertainty hanging thick in the air. "Do you think they saw us?" My voice was barely audible, trembling as I spoke. I had this irrational fear that if I said it too loud, it would become real. "I don't know," Aaron replied, glancing over his shoulder. "But we'll only be safe for so long." His voice was firm, but I could tell he was worried. It set my nerves ablaze. Then a faint sound reached us. Footsteps, methodical, echoing through the alley. Every instinct told me to flee, to run until I couldn't breathe. But Aaron wasn't stopping. He moved us behind a stack of crates, urging me to crouch low. "Just stay quiet," Aaron said, and I nodded, my heart racing as the footsteps grew louder. The streetlight outside flickered ominously, casting dancing shadows that only heightened my fear. I strained to listen, and soon I heard the voices. They were hushed but furious. "They couldn't have gotten far. Split up and search the blocks," one voice ordered, colder than the evening air. "Damn it! This is taking too long!" Another snapped. I could hear the impatience coursing through them. "I knew they'd show up," the first voice continued. "They're probably hiding somewhere around here." My stomach twisted in knots. They were searching for us, and the fear clawed at my insides. Aaron tensed beside me, his focus unyielding. I wished I could ask him what this was all about, but there simply wasn't time. Suddenly, as if summoned by my thoughts, a shadow fell across our hiding spot. I froze, heart hammering in my chest. A figure stood just a few feet away, the light glinting off their watchful eyes. "Check behind those crates," they said, voice dripping with authority. Aaron's body went rigid beside me. If they found us now, there would be no escaping. My breath felt stuck in my throat, like a dam holding back a tidal wave of dread. I didn't know what they wanted, but it couldn't be good. Just when I thought our cover would be blown, the figure turned and walked away. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "We're trapped," I said, panic creeping into my tone. "What do we do now?" Aaron's eyes darted around. "We need to find a way out of this block. There has to be an exit somewhere." His words gave me a flicker of hope. We couldn't stay here. We had to move. Just then, a loud crash echoed from somewhere down the alley, followed by a sharp scream. What was happening? My stomach dropped. "What was that?" I asked, voice trembling again. Aaron's expression hardened. I don't know, but we can't wait to find out. He grabbed my hand and we slipped out from behind the crates, creeping further into the labyrinth of shadows. As we rounded another corner, that's when I saw it. A figure peering around a corner, watching us intently. My heart sank as their eyes locked onto mine. Whatever was happening wasn't over yet. I instinctively stepped back, wanting to disappear into the darkness, but Aaron held firm. Stay close, he whispered, his eyes flicking between the figure and the shadows surrounding us. The face was partially obscured by a hood, but I could see enough to know that this wasn't just anyone wandering the streets. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but the presence of the figure rooted me in place. It felt like a game of cat and mouse where the rules were suddenly rewritten. Just when I was about to make a sound, the figure turned slightly, revealing a flash of determination. It wasn't just watching us. It was waiting for us to make a move. Do you know them? I asked, barely able to keep my voice steady. Aaron shook his head, but I could see the tension in his jaw. No, but they're clearly looking for us. We can't let them get any closer. The figure took a step toward us and I felt my heart lurch. Aaron pulled me backward, around a tight corner into another alley. I stumbled, and Aaron's grip tightened on my arm, guiding me further away. This way. We didn't look back, though I could feel the figure's eyes burning into my back. Adrenaline coursed through me, muffling the voice of reason in my head. We had to keep moving. That was all I could think about. As we raced down the new alley, I felt the air shift, colder and heavier. A faint sound echoed of something falling behind us. A can rolling, maybe. That's when panic truly hit me. It wasn't just someone searching for us. It was chaos, erupting around us. Do you hear that? I asked, stopping momentarily. There was a growing uproar of voices and footsteps, an army of hunters closing in. We need to find a place to hide, fast, Aaron urged, urgency spiking in his tone. We burst out onto another street, but it felt like stepping into the open jaws of a predator. Flashing lights suddenly illuminated the surrounding buildings. Police cars? I couldn't tell, but they were too close for comfort. I pulled Aaron back, whispering, "We can't go out there." He looked to a nearby boarded-up storefront, its windows shattered and darkened. "In there," he said, pointing. I hesitated, but there was no time. If anyone was tracking us, they would follow the light and noise. We rushed toward the entrance, ducking inside just as a car screeched to a halt outside. Inside the store was a forgotten graveyard of relics, overturned shelves, old newspapers, and the smell of dust. My heart skipped at every creak of the floor beneath us. The gloom of the store pressed in, amplifying the tension. Aaron moved cautiously, peeking through a grimy window. "They're looking for us," he muttered, more to himself than to me. I knew this would happen. But why now? Before I could ask what he meant, I noticed something glinting in the debris nearby. I picked it up, revealing a small object. Holding it up to the light, I realized with a shock that it was a key. "What is this doing here?" I wondered aloud. But before we could process it, footsteps thundered closer. I squeezed the key tightly in my hand as Aaron pulled me deeper into the darkness of the store. My mind raced with questions, but another sound interrupted. The haunting call of someone shouting our names. "Time's up," Aaron said, urgency coating his voice. "We need to find a way out of here." In that moment, I knew we had only begun to uncover the chaos around us, and I was terrified of what would happen next. The ruckus outside intensified, muffled voices clamoring over one another, searching for us. Aaron pushed further into the store's shadows, his urgency igniting a flicker of resolve within me. We needed to move quickly, but I had no idea how we would escape with hunters surrounding us. "Get up front. We may not have much time," Aaron urged, glancing back at the entrance. I followed him, the adrenaline pumping in my veins. The store's ashen interior felt equally claustrophobic and disorienting, and I had to remind myself that the real danger was lurking outside, hunting for us. As we neared a dusty window, I gripped the key tightly, its cool metal a stark contrast to the rising terror in my chest. What was it for? Did it even matter? My thoughts spun, but I couldn't afford to let them consume me. "Look," Aaron said, gesturing through the grimy glass. I leaned in close, trying to see past the dirt and shadows. Outside, flashing lights reflected off the buildings, police agents moving in tight formation. They fanned out, drawing closer to our hiding spot. My breath caught in my throat as one officer approached the entrance, glancing around. I instinctively crouched lower, heart hammering against my ribs. "They're here," I whispered. "They won't find us if we move," Aaron replied, his voice steady, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of fear. "There should be a back entrance." He turned, scanning the store for options, but the light from outside painted the front area in stark relief, turning the back into an unease-riddled mystery. "Can't we just break a window?" I suggested with an edge of desperation. "We'll attract too much attention. We have to be smart about this," he said. I could see him weighing the consequences of any noise, the urgency palpable between us. Suddenly a thud resonated from the back room, accompanied by the sound of voices shouting our names. It was too close for comfort. Panic surged as I felt the key clawing against my skin, a cruel reminder of the unknown possibilities it held. "We need to try that door," I said, nodding toward a weathered wooden door at the far end of the store. "It could lead to a way out." Aaron hesitated, glancing back at the window. "What if it's locked?" "Then I'll use this." I held up the key, my voice surprisingly firm despite my nerves. I didn't fully understand why I felt so compelled to use it, but perhaps it was the last thread of hope I had. He swallowed and nodded, eyes steely with determination as we moved toward the door. Each step felt precarious, the fear of being caught pushing at our backs. As we reached the door, I inserted the key into the rusty lock. It turned smoothly, much to my surprise. "Here goes nothing," I breathed as I pushed the door open, ushering in a wave of stale air and darkness. We stepped into the unknown, and the unmistakable sound of chaos faded behind us. I felt a twinge of guilt leaving my last hiding spot. Part of me longed to know what lay beyond that door, but survival took precedence over curiosity. The narrow hallway was dimly lit, littered with debris. A clock on the wall ticked loudly, the sound echoing eerily, reminding me of the ticking time bomb of our situation. Aaron glanced back at me, eyes wide full of urgency. "Let's keep going," he said, nudging me forward. I could hear footsteps echoing from the distance. They were closer now. My heart pounded furiously as the oppressive weight of fear settled heavily on me. We pushed through another door at the end of the hallway, emerging outside into the night's cool embrace. The world felt different out here. Except for the distant sirens, everything was eerily quiet, as if holding its breath for what might come next. "Where do we go?" I asked, instinctively turning to Aaron, who now seemed focused, scanning our surroundings. "There's an alleyway to the right," he replied urgently, pointing in the direction away from the chaos surrounding the front of the shop. "Let's head there, see if we can find a way to lose them." We sprinted toward the alley, adrenaline spurring us onward as I glanced back one last time at the shop we had escaped. Would they know we left? But when I turned my focus back to the turbulent path ahead, something caught my eye. Near the dumpster lay something metallic, catching the faint light above. I felt an involuntary pull toward it, and against my better judgment, I slowed down. "Keep moving," Aaron shouted from a few steps ahead, but I bent down, instinctively reaching for the object. It was a silver pendant, etched with strange symbols that seemed to hum faintly under my fingertips. "What is it?" Heron asked, turning back as I held it up. I don't know," I said breathlessly, my heart pounding not just from fear but from curiosity. I could feel that there was something significant about it. "Let's go," he urged again, but I felt rooted in place. Would this pendant provide answers? Or was it another layer of the mystery I'd stumbled into? I pocketed it, ready to move on. "Okay, let's go." I nodded, finally meeting Aaron's concerned gaze. We rushed toward the alley's end, a flicker of hope igniting amidst the anxiety. But as we rounded the corner, I turned to look back once more. "They'll catch up," I whispered, feeling the pressure of fate closing in. "We have to keep running," Heron said firmly. But would any distance truly save us from the inexplicable chaos? Would the secrets behind the shadows ever reveal themselves? With that, doubt settled heavily on my chest as we plunged into the depths of the night, cloaked in uncertainty about what awaited us next. And beneath it all, questions lingered in the shadows. Were we mere pawns in a larger game? Whatever we had stumbled into was far from over,